Hey, welcome back. So this is going to be video 8 of our 10-part mini series covering how to cut and code or decode various auto keys or even mechanical keys. So hey, welcome back. So this is our 8th video of our 10-part mini series covering how to use the various machines like the Keyline 303, the Silka Speed, and the Gymkana 994. So today's video is going to be more advanced because we're near the end of this class. So now you understand the foundations, how to manually cut, how to do the calibrations, and do the basics. But now we have the what ifs. What if we have an old key? What if we have a tricky key? How do we kind of go about those situations, one without damaging the vehicles or damaging the locks, but then also how do we do it without damaging or ruining inventory? What if we only have one key? We have to make sure we're right the first time. So we measure twice, cut once, that kind of thought process. So let's kind of go through two of the biggest, I guess, keys that I come across that are really worn, really old, and like problematic would be like the Toyota turn keys, and then also these Honda keys. Sometimes these Honda keys are so worn and beat up, they're just like smashed. It's like the tips are going to be like a 2 and a 1 instead of a 1 and a 1. It's pretty crazy. So let's kind of go through. I've already made videos with these keys. They're kind of already, I purposely broke them with a file and round them down to like make them aged. So let's go ahead and I'll show you what. And again, I have full videos. I have 4 videos on, or 2 videos on this topic and 2 videos on the next week's topic about how to decode with the calipers. So before we get started, again, I told you this in a previous video, we'll need one of these. It's like $7, $8 at Home Depot, Walmart. Get the nylon ones. It's plastic. It's cheaper. If you go with the metal ones, it's going to be more expensive. They maybe last you longer. But again, are you beating up your tools? Probably not. So go with something like this. This is going to be very important when it comes to measuring and looking at the valleys and the peaks of these keys to cross-reference with the Gymkana. So if you don't have one of these, you can do it by eye. It's not going to be correct. I've seen people try to do it by eye. Oh, I'm just going to look at that. They still get it wrong because when that key is really worn, that 2 or that 3 or the 4 and the 3 or the 1 and the 2 makes a huge difference. And maybe if you cut it higher, you can always cut it lower, but you can't go back. So you want to make sure you have the right tools and you can make it happen. So let's kind of go through and see what we're looking at. So if we look at this Toyota key, this is going to be worn, and see how these teeth are not like really pronounced. They're very worn. And then you look at the factory cut key, see how they're thicker. So this key in the door probably wouldn't turn to unlock it. Maybe lock it. It'll work in the ignition, but it wouldn't work like in the trunk and stuff like that. So a key like this is what we want. So with the Gymkana, we can take a key like this, decode it, and cut a key like that. So let's kind of go through and see. What it's going to do is it's going to touch all the valleys, and it's going to kind of guess and say, hey, there's some material here. It should be thicker, but we sense the button here. We sense the valley here. So it should be this or that. Cool. And again, Toyotas, it only scans one side. See how it's touching each side. Now if that tracer is bent, it's going to throw off different readings. So we look at the bottom, we would have the 4 all the way in, and can you tell if that's the same? It looks flat on here, but then on here it's like it's sloped. Is that correct? Maybe. There's a button, a dip, a button. They're very small compared to this. And then here, and then there's a notch. So if you turn it sideways, you can see those different cuts. That's another trick. If you hold it like this, you can't really see anything here. This part will get worn off, and then you're like, what the heck? So if you look sideways, you can see. So now, one of the ways for decoding with the digital caliper, zero it out, is if we want to look and compare. We want to compare. So if we want to see what a 3 is, if a 3 is here, 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 all those, let's go ahead and measure and see if it's all the same. So if we measure here, 5.4, so that's a 5.4, and if we measure over here, 5.4, and if we measure over here, 5.4. So we can safely assume that that section, and that section are all the same. Well, it says they're all the same here, so we can easily say that's a 3. What about these little bumps here and that divot? So let's go ahead and do the flat section. So 6.3, the next one, 6.7, ooh, 6.6. So this one's really worn. So it's really good because the Gymkana is really calibrated. It's able to pick up that minute detail and still show that. So if we bring out the actual correct key, this is the correct one. And if we look, if we measure 5.2, 5.2, 5.3, 2, 5.2, good. And if we measure flat, 6.6 and 6.6, very uniform. So this would be like the bonus. We don't really have that key that's so nice with the customers. We just have this messed up old key. So by using this digital caliper, we're able to kind of go, okay, well, this one is the same as this one. This one's the same as that one. That should be correct. Now, if we look at that tip, there's that little tiny cut here where that point is. So how do we measure that? So it says on here it's a 2, and these are 2s as well. So what we do is we would measure, oops, I bumped it. We would measure here, and we look at this, 6.7, and then we use our flat section and we look where it says that another 2 is. 6.6, 6.7. So now, take this good one away. Now we can easily say that, where I'm pointing, this depth of 2 that says on there is the same as the height of here, which is a 2. So they're the same. And then obviously if we look at here, this is down, but this is up where it says it's a 1. We can safely assume that a 1 is a higher point than a 2. And that's how we would decode that. Now, worst case, say if it showed up and it was like a 3 like that. That's where what we do is we would look and go, okay, how do we measure? Okay, well, we first eyeball it. Does that look right? And let's measure and make sure. So in a matter of me explaining this in 7 minutes, that we already have the code for the key. Great. So that's when we are using the decode option. Now, if we have the codes, this is where we type in. So if we look at the numbers up here, we would type in like, oh, there's no code. We don't know the code, but we type in what we need. And I have a video on how to do that for like the Toyotas and the Hondas. You look at that key door, the door lock, to find that code, you type it in, and cool. Now, if we have direct, that would be if we're looking at this one and we want to put it in the other Gymkana and have 2 Gymkanas running at the same time. So we take this code, stick it on this one, and then we have both Gymkanas cutting at the same time. Or if we know the cut code from previous interactions with that vehicle. Another thing is when people use the direct is they eyeball it, but if it's really worn like this, you're going to spend more time double, triple checking instead of just decoding it and fixing 1 or 2 spots. And if you're off by 1, everything else is off. So you want to be very careful if you try direct. Again, the computer is very smart, the eyes are very smart, the brain's very smart, but it's going to be more I guess, if-then statements versus maybes, and I feel like this with our eyes. So that's how we're going to do that for those keys. In a way, it does give a misread. So again, you want to use that baby to clean it and get all that gunk off. And see how it's touching everything? Cool. Okay, and let's see what pops up. Okay, so let's look at this key. So we have, drops down a little here, it's flat, drops down more, and we have some variation, but also it says there's a 2 here, and I know for a fact with experience the tips are always 1 and 1. So let's go ahead and kind of use some, zero this out. Cool. Let's go ahead and look, and let's make sure that this 4 is the same as that 4. So I'm going to measure, and I'm going to pull here 6.8, and that other 4 is at this little apex 6.7, 6.6, and it is worn. So I would say yes, that's pretty correct. But let's look at the 5s on either end of that hill and see what those pop up as. So 6.3, oh, and then 6.8. So there is a difference. And then drop down over here, 6.4. So yeah, those 5s, that is correct. Cool. Let's go ahead and look at this 1 or this 2. So if that 2 is there, let's go ahead and 0. Cool. Let's go ahead and look at the 1 here and see what that measurement is. So if we pull from here, that's 8, and let's look at the next one, 8. And let's look at the one up here. 7.9, let's just say it's 8, cool. Now let's look at this one down here. Hard to get a hold of it, so worn. Ooh. So it's 7.6. So if we look at a 2, let's see what a 2 looks like. 7.8. So it's more, is it really the same depth as the 2? No, it's not. So let's look at this 2 and that 2 and see if it's the same. So we measure this 2. 7.8. So it does match. It does measure, but it's like really off. That's where knowing like the vehicle would help. Like knowing that the tips of Hondas are always 1-1. Now say if you don't know how to get the cut code, I have a video link below that's going to show how to work on that glove box or that door lock, like by the driver foot, to get the correct cut code from the manufacturer, and it would show, it'd be like an M and some letters. Cool. So again, we're using Decode to find out what's close, and we can fix it. So we went back. Oh, there's no key there. Let's stop it. Or we can do codes, type it in when you get that door lock on there. Direct is if we know what it is, but let's just say this one is correct. Actually, let's put this here. Let's do find codes, code not found. Let's change it to a 1. Find codes, code not found. So that would be the correct cut. Has code up here, but that's where we want to match it. So when you look at the actual key, it is a true 1-to-1 on the tip. That's what we're looking for. But it's just really old and worn. So let's go ahead and do the whole question mark and find codes. Nothing. So sometimes relying on the find codes gives you like a false sense. It's just not ideal, in my opinion. Okay, so as you saw, we use our digital calipers, and we were able to make these keys that are decoded. They're kind of incorrect, and then also make it correct by doing the whole if then. If this one is this, then this one should be that, and kind of problem solve that way. The advantage of this, instead of like asking others for, hey, what's the code? Here's a picture, and having them tell you the answer, but you don't know how to get the answer. Now you know how. One way to do it. You can calibrate the machine, and it'll give you pretty accurate. Like for example, that Toyota key. It's pretty beat up and worn, but it still knows like, hey, this is how the key should look. And it's basically spot on. Even though I damaged the key to make it look old and worn, a fully calibrated Gymkana still posed. Don't drop your tools. Oh. Highest quality, $7.99 at Walmart. Get excited. So, not a sponsor yet. So what I'm getting to is you have 3 ways so far you can calibrate and then know that the machine's going to be basically spot on and pull the correct code how it should be. You might have 1 or 2 issues and then tool to fix it. Or second option is you can go through and you can measure more and fine tune those keys as needed. The third option is going to be the modify section. If it's really bad, almost impossible key, which I'll be in the next video, the 9th video, explaining how a little more advanced and super nerdy, but then at the end of the day, you're still able to get the correct cut code. So that's another cool thing. Actually, I forgot to mention with the Gymkana, like say if you can't decode correctly, or if it's like worn or something like that, you can just manually type in that code if it's a Toyota or a Honda or a Scion. So that's kind of cool. Some manufacturers have those cut codes on their door or on their items of where to find that, so you can just type it in. So that's pretty cool. So the next video is going to be a little more nerdy when it comes to how to like use our tools. But at the end of the day, you're able to take any sort of key and get the correct cut code, and you'll be successful. So what I was getting at is, instead of asking someone, hey, what's the cut code? Hey, what's the cut code? I need this help. Here's a picture. Now you're able to use these tools, and you're able to do it yourself. So imagine this, if my guy asks me, hey, what's the answer for this? And I'm busy, and I can't get to him in 20 minutes. He's sitting there waiting for 20 minutes. And is he just doing a key just out of the blue? No, he's doing a customer's key. So now a customer's waiting 10, 15, 20 minutes on top of that other time when you got stuck here. But now, with this information, I showed you how to like decode and measure for that Toyota key. You can get it down to 2-3 minutes extra max, and then you're good to go. The main thing is, don't rely on these codes up here. Rely on the pictures. Make sure it matches. That's going to be a better, more, I guess, consistent way of getting the correct cuts. Just because this doesn't say cut code, but it has like some other numbers, like a range. As long as it looks right, that's going to work. So remember, it's not rocket science. It's metal keys. Pretty simple. Cool. Other than that, if these videos have been helpful, make sure you share with your other friends in the Locksmith community so they can learn, get some tips maybe if they're like getting new to this or starting. And then also make sure you give this video a thumbs up. It just, I guess, supports in the world of YouTube and algorithms and all that stuff. And other than that, have a great day, and I will chat with you next time on our next video when we go over the modify section. So thanks again, and see you next time. Bye.